Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase is considered one of the best Scooby-Doo movies ever made, and when you look at just how many of those movies exist, that's quite impressive. I mean, the concept of Scooby and the gang getting trapped inside of a video game about themselves that's been infected by a phantom virus was already cool enough, but the fact that they team up with past versions of themselves to go up against villains from their past just blew it right out of the water. I mean, it was fun, it was stylish, it was creative, and while it wasn't quite as good as Zombie Island, it was still an excellent ride and particularly entertaining for kids. So when I heard that there was a video game based on the movie, I thought, that makes sense. I mean, the movie's about being trapped inside of a video game, so the source material lines up perfectly. Now, as we all probably know, a good movie doesn't automatically mean that the video game adaptation is going to be good too. Nowadays, video games based on movies aren't very common, but back in the 80s, pretty much all the way up until the early 2010s, they were everywhere. And a lot of us bought these games thinking, oh boy, that was a great movie, I can't wait to play the game, only to get home and be overwhelmed with feelings of disappointment and regret. Take a more recent example, like Iron Man, alright? That movie was fantastic, one of the best superhero movies ever, but the video game was a boring, clunky, uninspired mess. But sometimes we got the opposite. Look at X-Men Origins Wolverine. That was a horrible movie, but the game was actually pretty damn good, even if it was a bit repetitive at times. So where does that leave Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase? Is it a disappointing piece of crap that'll make you want to drown your sorrows in copious amounts of alcohol? Or is it a hidden gem? Well, what do you say we find out? Oh no! It would appear as though the legitimate physical copy of this game that I totally legally own has gone missing. Good thing I burned a CD backup completely legally for just such an occasion. In order to launch the backup, I'm gonna use an exploit called Tony Hacks. Using Pro Skater 3, I have a save file on my memory card that I can trigger whenever I select Create Skater from the main menu. A black screen will come up prompting me to swap CDs, and bam, we just bypassed copy protection. But for a good reason, of course. So unlike the movie, the game starts off with the gang already inside of the video game, so there's no chase at the university or any explanation as to how they ended up in there. Then the phantom virus shows up, and I mean, just look at him. Is that the best they could do? He looks like a voodoo doll carved out of a scented candle.
You'll never get past the monsters I've unleashed.
Ew, dear God, that is genuinely terrifying. I mean, here's what he's supposed to look like in the movie. You tell me which one you think is scarier. And that's when the rest of the gang shows up, and while I think that everyone looks pretty okay, Velma's mouth is a little messed up. But otherwise, everyone looks pretty good, especially considering this is PS1 we're talking about. So Fred and Daphne split up to set a trap for the virus, while Velma hangs back at the main hub, and of course, Scooby and Shaggy are stuck with actually having to play through the game in order to track down and defeat the virus. Now, in the movie, the whole gang had to beat each level together until they reached the end of the game, since that was the only way to get back to the real world. So already that was a bit disappointing, since Scooby and Shaggy are the only playable characters. And you can't decide which one either, since that's actually based on which level you're playing. So this is the main hub. It serves as the level select screen. It consists of 7 areas, each with 3 levels, and the third level always being a boss fight. The first area we have access to is Japan, which was in the movie, but only briefly as part of a montage. So right away, when you look at this, what's the first thing that comes into your mind? Yeah, Crash Bandicoot. It's basically the same thing, only not as fun. One thing that pisses me off is that I keep getting phone calls, which interrupt the gameplay, but on top of that, they're also pretty janky. When the phone rings, you have to push triangle to accept the call, which pauses the game and one of the gang starts talking to you. Now, the weird thing is that you actually have to keep pushing triangle to scroll through the text.
But in the hands of the phantom virus, it's sure to be one of the most dangerous as well.
Like right here, see? The text doesn't move. I had to push triangle. It doesn't just keep scrolling automatically as the character speaks. And since this is the first level, you get a lot of phone calls telling you how to play the game.
Hurry, Scooby! The
Picking up more than Scooby.
Now, I have no problem with receiving verbal instructions as part of a tutorial, but this is just way too much. Like, it just keeps happening over and over and over again. And even if you ignore it, even if you try to run through the level ignoring it, the phone keeps ringing non-stop. It just keeps freaking ringing. Now, gameplay-wise, the mechanics are pretty simple. You can jump, double jump, ground pound to break open items and kill enemies, and as your only weapon, you can throw pies. If you tap square, you'll throw the pie in the direction you're facing. If you hold square, you can actually aim where you want the pie to go. There's also Scooby Snacks scattered everywhere that you can collect, and once you get 100 of them, you actually get an extra life. As far as the enemies go, you don't have to kill everyone you see. The game lets you run past them if you want, but if you're feeling especially bloodthirsty, then the good news is that ammo isn't exactly scarce. The enemy variety is decent, but a lot of it does just boil down to enemies that charge at you, enemies that throw projectiles, and enemies that kind of just pace back and forth. My favorite, though, would have to be the break dancers. I mean, just look at these guys. I'm surprised they don't also shoot vomit projectiles at you. There's also a lot of environmental hazards, like moving platforms, alligator platforms that submerge while you're standing on them, crap that falls from the sky, rolling rocks, and a variety of other generic cliches. Whenever it comes down to just running straight ahead and jumping over pitfalls, it's easy enough, but there's a lot of moments when the game will make you do some more intensive platforming, and that's when things start to get really rough. The controls might not be too bad, but everything feels stiff, so it's really easy to overshoot a jump and fall to your death. Not to mention the perspective of running straight ahead with everything coming towards you results in some pretty crappy depth perception. A lot of the time I can't tell how close a platform really is, so I'll miscalculate my jump and, you guessed it, fall to my death. Another issue is that when you let go of the analog stick, you maintain quite a bit of momentum, so it's really hard to place your landing. You pretty much have to watch for that little shadow underneath you whenever you jump around in order to stick the landings properly, and even that doesn't help as much as I wish it did. Scooby honestly gets the worst of these platforming challenges in my opinion, particularly in the pyramid. The best example is this part right here. We've got giant boulders, bats that follow you, and a few enemies that are just hanging out on some of the platforms. The best thing to do here is to take your time and clear away the enemies before trying to progress. But despite that, I kept dying. Thanks to either the bats or the boulders, they both had quite the part to play in this little amusement, and once I ran out of lives and had to redo the entire level, I really started to lose it. I became so impatient that I was rushing the shit out of it, which only made things worse. So like I said before, stay calm, take your time, and you'll pull through. Another good example would be here in the amusement park. You see these swinging logs? Well, not only are they swinging, but they're at a diagonal, which diagonal movement in this game sucks. It's not like Super Mario 64 where you have very precise analog movement and full control over your speed. In this game, you're always at full speed, and you can pretty much only move straight or at 45-degree angles, even if you're using the analog stick. So I have to shimmy my way across these things in a really rigid, unnatural way. Now, luckily this part isn't very long, but I can't help but think about how much better this game would have been if it just had proper analog movement. I also have to make mention of the catapults. No, they're not particularly difficult, but I was quite taken aback when I saw that I was expected to bunny hop and change directions on them. Plus, some of them are placed as traps that kill you. But I'm not even criticizing this part. I actually really enjoyed it since the challenge was fair and the controls did nothing to hinder my enjoyment of it. So, good on you, game. Now, Shaggy has his fair share of platforming challenges too, but I found him easier to control for some reason. Whereas Scooby is just pure platforming, Shaggy gets a few quirkier missions, like this one in the Arctic where he's riding a sled and avoiding penguins. You can steer and brake, but you can't come to a full stop. It's actually pretty fun, but I was really bad at it when I was trying to figure it out. Like, the game doesn't actually tell you which button is the brake. It's X, by the way, but I didn't know that, so it took me a little while to figure that out. By the time I actually started to get the hang of things, the sledding level was over, which is too bad because I was enjoying it and that was the only one. There are no more of them. There is a skateboarding level, which is kind of similar, and that one's okay too, but the stiffness of the controls can really be felt here, resulting in a pretty clumsy, awkward experience overall. Now let's talk about the boss fights. Most of these are pretty easy because they all follow a similar formula. The boss will do a series of attacks that you have to avoid, usually a mixture of melee attacks and projectiles, and then they'll have a recovery window in which you can attack them. If you try to attack the boss outside of this window, the pies will just bounce right off of them. You start with 5 pies, and each boss takes 3 hits to kill. If you use up all your pies before you can beat the boss, more will eventually spawn in the stage, so you're not completely screwed. The most interesting bosses are from the last 3 stages. The big city boss is Charlie, the Funland robot from an old episode of Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? And remember when I said that the movie was about Scooby and the gang teaming up with past versions of themselves to go up against villains from their past? Well, not only are the past versions of the gang completely missing from this game, but this is the only classic villain in the game, and he wasn't even featured in the movie. Okay, now maybe I shouldn't be so hard on the game for not being exactly like the movie, because the game did actually come out 1 full week before the movie did, so maybe they just didn't have all the information. I tried to look into whether or not there was any co-development between the teams that worked on the movie and the teams that worked on the game, but I couldn't find any information. So if you do happen to know anything about that, I'd be very interested to know. But anyway, this boss is pretty interesting because you have to dodge bombs while riding a conveyor belt that constantly changes directions. The robot also only ever becomes vulnerable while the bombs are still on the conveyor belt, so it actually poses a decent challenge to attack him while avoiding all the hazards. In Egypt, you go up against the Phantom Virus and a bunch of giant mummies. You have to knock the mummies off the edge of the stage and attack the virus when his shield goes down. I used the pies to knock the mummies off the stage, but you can also use ground pounds to do the same thing. It's a pretty simple fight overall, but I just found it kind of interesting the way it was set up. Now, the final boss was a huge pain in the ass for me. It's the Phantom Virus again, but this time he's really serious about kicking your ass. He has 3 phases, the first one being the absolute worst of the 3. He flies around the stage a couple times until he stops for a few seconds before charging straight towards you. I had a lot of trouble trying to avoid these attacks and usually ended up losing most of my health here. In the second phase, he flies up into the sky and starts trying to hit you with lightning bolts. Now, this part's really easy, because as long as you keep moving, he never really seems to hit you, and then he splits into 3, revolves around you, and charges at you one by one. For some reason, I found avoiding these attacks to be a little easier than it was in phase 1. The tricky bit is that once the virus is vulnerable, the 3 of them keep rotating around the stage, so you have to hit them while they're still moving. Now, luckily, you only need to hit one of them, and it doesn't seem to matter which one. Then we have phase 3, where the Phantom turns giant and tries to karate chop you. Now, my main problem here is that every time I got this far, I already had really low health, so 1 or 2 hits and I'm dead before I could figure out what to do. So it took me a pretty long time to get past the first 2 phases without taking too much damage, but eventually I pulled it off, managed to survive the 3rd phase, and I finally beat him.
Help! Run, Scoob!
Fred and Daphne aren't back with that trap yet. What should we do?
Like you're asking us? You're the brains in the group.
I never expected you to be such good players. You may have beaten my monsters, but this game is not over.
That's what you think, Phantom Virus.
This game is definitely over.
Are you guys okay?
Like, where did he go? Yeah, where did he go?
The wireless communication system.
We looked all over the place for a trap, but we couldn't find anything that would work.
And then I remembered that this system has virus protection software on it.
I always knew that software would come in handy one day.
So you're telling me that this entire time, that little phone that we've been carrying with us had the power to just vacuum the phantom virus into oblivion? Okay. And if Velma claims to have known the phone would come in handy all along, then how come she didn't come up with that plan? How come Fred and Daphne had to come up with it? I thought Velma was supposed to be the smart one. Yeah, right.
So, tell me that means the phantom virus is gone for good.
He'd be pretty stupid to come back.
In the movie, they beat the game, defeat the virus, return to the real world, and figure out that one of the students at the university was behind everything all along. Here, they don't even go back to the real world. They just crack a stupid joke and then the credits roll.
So, you guys still want to be in a video game?
Huh?
So what's the verdict then? How do we feel about this game? Well, I think that it's mediocre. If I'd grown up playing it as a kid, I think I would have liked it a lot more, just because I'd be really excited about the fact that I can play as Scooby and Shaggy. But as an adult, I don't have any nostalgia for it, so I'm looking at it through fresh eyes. I'm looking at it based on what I expect from a game, and it just doesn't quite deliver. I don't think I'd ever go back and play it, but I could see it being fun if you're trying to speed run it or you're trying to go for high scores. And it is one of those games where if you can adjust to all the little things that are wrong with it, you can probably get really damn good at it. I mean, I've seen some long players on YouTube do some crazy stuff with this game where they're playing it like, you know, they could do this in their sleep. So I don't think that if you like the game, there's anything wrong with having that opinion, but it's just not for me. And you know what? I had fun playing it. Overall, this was an enjoyable experience. You know, I could have put myself through something a lot worse. So thank you for watching. I really appreciate that. Don't forget to comment, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and stay tuned for more content.